My name is Kafui Day. You're watching GH1 TV. This is your award-winning breakfast show, GH Today. And today I come to you from the Ewutu Senya West constituency for hard talk. The election has been done. What next? We shall find out. I'm speaking with one of the victors. It's a bit of a surprise to you, considering where I'm coming from, but you'll soon find out who exactly he is, and I will pick his thoughts on the issues arising from the election. It's now time for hard talk. Stay with us. Welcome to Hard Talk. My name is Kafui Day, and like I said earlier, in case you missed my intro, I'm at the Ewutu Senya West constituency where a political tsunami took place, and the incumbent Hannah Tete, foreign minister, was overthrown legally, and the new MP elect for this constituency is George Nenyi Anda. But George is not here with me. I have another young gentleman who will be representing his party in Parliament, the New Patriotic Party, and he's somebody whose voice will be very familiar to you. On Joy 99.7 FM a few years ago, he decided to put the broadcasting career aside and delve into the rough and tumble of politics. I'm pleased to welcome to Hard Talk this morning Kojo Opong Nkrumah, MP-elect for the Ofoase Ayerebi constituency Eastern Region. Kojo, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you here.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
First of all, tell us, how did the campaign go?
It's been a tough campaign. It wasn't, an easy exercise for any of the candidates and the president-elect, I imagine. It was a very tough exercise. We didn't have the required resources. Things are generally very difficult in the country. Politics has become a lot more difficult today because of competition and many other elements. So it's been a very tough campaign for me personally, for many of the other parliamentary candidates, and even for the president-elect. But I think the important thing is that we all braced ourselves to do the hard work. And the combination of hard work and the grace of God has culminated in giving us this overwhelming victory.
And when you say overwhelming, it's not just for you, but I mean, right across the country, it almost seems as if Ghana experienced a tidal wave of shocks, upsets, results overturned. I mean, people who thought they were safe in their seats been swept away. What do you think really accounts for what happened from Wednesday?
I think what accounts for what happened from Wednesday is a manifestation of the sophistication of our politics. I mean, the days when people imagine that X group of people will always vote for Y party, or that these set of traditional career politicians are political heavyweights that can never be kicked out. However, today it's more about what you can do for the people, how you respond to the issues and the needs of the people, the kind of ground game you put together, being on ground, interacting and working with the people to deliver their needs. That's what matters today. And I think it's our ability to pay attention to that and to deliver that in this campaign. That was translated into what happened on Wednesday.
What was the most important part of your campaign? What really did it for you, not just for you, but even for your party?
Generally, I think, one thing that did it for us, or let me say about two or three things did it for us. First of all, the NPP as a party has a brilliant track record when we were in government. It was a foundation on which this entire campaign was fought. Our can-do spirit, our ability to have done it in times past. That was one. The other thing was that we picked the right set of messages and couched them well.
What were the messages?
Well, the messages essentially were, strung around delivering solutions to the challenges that the people face today, and delivering hope to the people that, listen, if the major challenge is the economy and jobs, if the major challenge is the competence of the sitting government to deliver solutions to many other problems that we have, if the major challenge is the attitude of people in government, we have solutions to all of this. And you would recall our manifesto launch at the trade fair where we outlined a number of solutions. And we kept focusing on the message and on the solutions. On the other hand, our friends, chose what I'll call the wrong set of messages. So if you pick our performance, which was the foundation, if you pick the messaging that we did, and then if you pick thirdly, the strategy with which we went into this election, our strategy was, I think, pretty good. We had a very strong social media strategy, but most importantly, we had an even stronger ground game to be present on the ground where it mattered most, even in the places that are traditionally not MPP zones. If you come to my constituency like this, towns that were not MPP towns or towns that don't vote for MPP, we went there, we hammered, we pounded, we campaigned into the cocoa farms, into the hamlets and villages where cars don't even go. So a very strong ground game, which included our campaign on the ground and also our vigilance on election day, our collation of results. Those are about the three major things that came together to give us what we saw.
There was one word which resonated throughout the campaign from everyone who spoke for the NPP: incompetence.
Yes.
To a point where some thought that it began to irk and annoy the NDC somewhat. Was that deliberate?
It was deliberate. It was a deliberate characterization of what we were witnessing. I mean, and I don't say this out of malice or disrespect for the NDC. First of all, you must recognize that this election was not just won by MPP supporters. This vote that you had with about a 1 million vote gap is a vote by NPP supporters, MPP sympathizers, and even NDC supporters who were displeased with how the current government was managing things. And the current government was managing things with the greatest of respect to them in a manner that didn't demonstrate that they were on top of issues. Not having the skill set to nip things in the bud, to manage things sharply, is what we call incompetence. So it was deliberate to characterize what we're all witnessing. I mean, if we were witnessing a situation where the government was delivering X, it is important to characterize it as such so that people recognize it as and when they see it. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't meant to irk them. I understand the fact that our friends on the other side were not happy about that characterization. Admittedly, they also sought to characterize us, that we were a disunited party, that our leader was not able to bring the party together and, run an agenda that could move the party forward. So in politics, everybody characterizes the other. The trick is that you have to get the characterization right, and it has to be believable. What the people see must correspond with what you are telling them. And I think in that manner, our characterization therefore was right. The people recognized it, and they cast a vote to reflect it.
Let's go back to the dawn of Thursday, the 8th of December, when Mr. McMenu delivered what to the NDC would be an infamous press conference. And some of them are characterizing it as a low blow, intended to skew the thinking of the people and to make it seem as if you were winning. What was the whole idea behind that early morning press conference?
I think anybody who goes for McMenu's press conference and describes it as a low blow is unfortunately not being true to the facts. The facts don't support that at all. Now, earlier at the IPAC meetings, the parties had agreed that everybody will be quiet, the EC will collate and tell us where we were going. Unfortunately, around 11:45 thereabout, you in the media, present at the various polling stations, started reporting and analyzing the results that were coming from the polling stations. And your analysis was beginning to suggest that even in polling stations where previously the NDC had won and they were still winning, they were winning with lower margins, but in polling stations where sometimes the MPP had not won, they were now winning, or where they had won, they were even winning with bigger margins. That was a fact that was bearing itself out as the polling station results started coming in. From about 6:37 way till about 10 p.m. My good friend, Madam Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, at that time put out a press statement. And the press statement didn't only say that, she could have done a press statement that said, yes, you are hearing results from polling stations, but don't be too worried. There are many other polling stations to come, so have hope. She could have done that. She opted to say in her press statement that the people, and particularly the NDC supporters, should disregard the polling station numbers that were coming in and were being churned out by the media. The MPP hadn't spoken. And then she went further to say that they were privy to, may I say, better numbers or more complete numbers that suggested that they were in a comfortable lead and, quote, cruising to a victory.
But could that have been possible depending on what constituencies and what polling stations had come to them? Is it possible?
Very possible.
Because it's not possible that you all be looking at the same
Very,
figures.
very possible. but she opted to put it out when everybody had agreed to be quiet. Now, the moment she put it out, the message had been skewed. That the ruling government, through its campaign spokesperson, had now gone out to say that they were winning, or they had numbers that gave them a comfortable lead and they were cruising to victory. We could not allow that message to go unresponded.
Why not? You would have, by the numbers, you would have, with hindsight, you would have won the election.
This is politics, my brother. If you do, and anything could have happened. If you do not get the right message out when it matters the most, anything could have happened. It's better to balance the narrative than to be sorry at the end. And so what Peter McMahon did must be the entire fact. We haven't spoken yet, but because of what she had said, we want to explain to you what our collation process is. You would recall that it is after that then we opened our doors to our collation center and began to show the media that, listen, this is the collection of pink sheets we have received as at this time. This is what the numbers say. Saying is true. So be calm. The EC will do a good job later, but do not believe what she's saying. Do not take account of what she's saying, because if it is about what she's claiming, then we have even got better numbers. For me, what's important is that the very next day, the president-elect had the opportunity to speak to the nation and asked everybody, like, listen, calm down.
Are you suggesting that if Joyce Bawuah-Muktari, spokesperson for the NDC campaign, hadn't come out with her press statement, Mr. McMahon wouldn't have said anything?
I do not see why Mr. McMahon would have spoken at the time. Indeed, it was not within our game plan for Mr. McMahon to speak at the time. But once they put that out, it was important to balance the narrative. But like I said, what for me was more important was that the very next day, the president-elect spoke and explained to his supporters and to the nation that everybody calm down. The EC will do a good job. We are with the EC at the collation center. The figures that we are getting, they are also getting it. We are confident that the EC will do a good job. President Mahama also spoke to his supporters, and I commend him very, very much for how he spoke to his supporters.
But even he condemned the press conference by Mr. McMahon. Are you surprised by that condemnation?
And I'm surprised they didn't condemn the earlier statement by Madam Bawuah-Muktari. You see, some of the institutions in this country have to be more balanced and have to be proactive.
You're suggesting the Peace Council was not fair to you?
Well, they did what they did, but I would have expected that even in their comment, they would have said, listen, both sides cease the talk. We have already had conversations that nobody's going to speak. Cease the talk, let the EC work. When you come out and you condemn one side and you leave the other, not everybody will be too happy with that. But like I said, for me, the more important thing, President Mahama, President-elect Akufo-Addo both spoke the very next day and both calmed the situation, telling everybody that be calm, the EC will do the right job. And I'm happy to know that the EC did the right job when it was most necessary.
But even before we even talk about the EC doing the right job, there was a bit of a gap when, according to the various media stations who were doing the numbers, it appeared that the president-elect had an unassailable lead, but noises weren't big. I mean, the NDC's candidate, there was no hint of a concession. We're hearing things like it was likely that it was going to be some kind of a hung parliament or some national skirt and blouse issue where the president would be the president and then the MPP would take the house. In that period, what was going through your mind when the concession wasn't forthcoming?
I was not, personally, and I don't speak for the president-elect or for the party at the moment. Personally, I was at my collation center in Ofoase, Ayerebi, finishing our numbers. Occasionally, I'll check in on what was happening at the national picture. I thought it was, a bit early in the day to get a concession at that time. I didn't know what figures the NDC collation center had at the time. And like President-elect Akufo-Addo said, he knows President Mahama. He knows that when he's privy to all of those numbers, he will do the right thing. So it wasn't a time to be, angry or agitated that the concession wasn't coming in. It was a time to be hopeful that they will also get the right kind of figures and do the honorable thing. And I think in the end, they did it.
But was there tension? Did you feel a sense of tension in some
I personally
areas?
wasn't tensed. I know that across the country, for those who were very suspicious and worried about a number of things, they may have felt tensed. But again, if you were privy to the numbers, both from the EC Collation Center and from our own parallel, much to be tensed about.
Did the MPP hack into the EC's systems?
I don't know. I don't think we did. Why would we do that?
Well, that's what some people are saying, that there was an attempt by the NPP to hack the...
I don't think so.
And frustrate the EC, frustrate the,
I don't
the
think
NDC.
So. I don't think so.
Doing anything untoward.
I don't think so. From what I know, we had a very strong collation system. We sought to collate and ensure that the numbers at the table, represented the numbers that were coming from the various collation centers. I don't see, therefore, why anybody would have need to hack into the EC's collation system. Admittedly, I heard Madam Charlotte Osei suggest that the system was compromised at a point. The server was down or they were not getting numbers. I think maybe at some point they need to explain to us exactly what was done. And I do not even know whether or not their collation was an online collation system. I would imagine that it would be a local server on which they would do their own collation. So I don't think that we tried to do any such thing. I don't think we did that.
What kind of system did you have for collation?
We had our own
online
software that we had built for the collating from about the 28,000 polling stations across the country. We built parallel collation centers in the 275 constituencies. We had to mobilize our ping sheets from our polling stations into the constituency collation center and enter all of that data into the constituency system for it to be replicated on the national servers, so that at the national level we could view and see what was going on. That's what we pumped our energies in, and that's why by midnight we knew, that we were at a very comfortable level, and what now mattered was to protect those numbers at the EC's collation center.
Talking about protection of numbers, a very good friend of mine who is a well-known music producer, I don't have his permission to mention his name, so I can't give it up, but he told me that he was one of the polling agents at one of the polling stations. Tell me how that worked, the adopt the polling station strategy, and the fact that this gentleman, who I would never have associated with working on at such a level, was deeply involved with the election process.
One of the things that we did right from the onset, even from the MPP primaries, was to, without using so many words, send a message out there that everybody needs to get involved. It was a very strong message. You saw people who are not traditional politicians getting involved to run for political office. You saw people who you wouldn't imagine would want to do politics get into it. And we carried that same thing through by explaining to everybody that it is important for you to support and work for the change that we are looking for. And we carried it through till the very last 1 month when we came up with this adopt a polling station concept. That instead of looking for some, let's say, 2.8 million Ghana cedis to take care of polling stations, if everybody paid 500 Ghana cedis, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 friends came together to pay 500 Ghana cedis, you could get a polling station, secured. Now, what that did was that it galvanized ordinary people, musicians, doctors, bankers, taxi drivers, trotro drivers. I have market women in my constituency who will bring you 50 cities or 100 cities that I can't take a polling station, but I can contribute to a polling station. People felt involved in the exercise to bring about change, one polling station at a time. And that's why you saw all of these people from various backgrounds, many of whom may not necessarily be willing to come to the front as politicians, supporting behind the scenes to bring about this change. And I think their help will also be needed in keeping the incoming government on track to deliver the mandate.
And so the president conceded, the Electoral Commission chair announced the results, and it sparked wild jubilation across the country. Some would say over jubilation, because we're getting reports of people who have been killed. A car running into. I'm not talking even about the political side. I mean, vehicles running into people who were jubilating. And we've gotten reports of offices that have been seized. So youth employment offices, SADA offices. What do you make of all of the national offices barricaded?
I think two things need to happen. One, we need to validate these reports. I've also seen on social media counter reports from other persons that suggest that some of these things may not exactly be true. I've seen some of those reports. There's a famous actor whose pictures are out there. Now we are being told
that is not a true story.
That is not a true story. So I think that traditional media houses like yourself need to validate and tell us which of these reports is true and which is not true. But secondly, I think that for these ones that are true, they need to be condemned in utmost terms.
As the president and the president-elect
As the president and the president-elect have done. They need to be condemned in utmost terms. It is uncouth, unwarranted, uncalled for you in your bid to celebrate, to vandalize property, or to attack somebody else. It's uncouth, it's uncalled for. But the security agencies also need to do a good job. A crime is a crime is a crime is a crime. If somebody commits a crime under the guise of politics, we need to move away from that. That person needs to be made to understand, and the society needs to be made to understand that you cannot engage in criminality and hide under political flags to get away from it. And I think that that message needs to be sent out there very clearly.
What do you make of the over-exuberance of some of the supporters, really?
It's understandable. People have been looking for change for a while. They get excited. Some would, get exuberant. But my view is that we need to celebrate in moderation. The victors have to be magnanimous in victory. And it makes it possible for those who did not win also to be gracious in defeat. So for those who are overexcited, calm down, because it is now that the real work starts. We have a huge job ahead of us. Nanado was speaking to the BBC, I think yesterday, which was aired this dawn. And President-elect Akufo-Addo made the point that there is a huge job ahead of us. There's no time to party. And so for all of those who are excited, I would encourage them to channel their energies into praying for the new administration to be able to deliver on this very huge mandate that has been given to this new administration.
We'll talk about the huge job that you just alluded to. But let's go back to that interview that the President-elect gave the BBC. He spoke about two things: the necessity of dealing with the economy, and then he also spoke about going after those who had gotten themselves involved in corrupt practices via an independent public prosecutor. Let's deal with the economy first. And I've seen lists of what the President-elect is supposed to do when he comes into office. How sure are we that we're not going to hear stories of, oh, well, we knew the problem was bad, but not that bad? Because we've heard these things before in the past.
Well, so you may have heard them before in the times past. Was it true or not true? Because the fact that we've heard it before in times past doesn't mean whether or not it was true should be dismissed. When you assume the reins of government, one of the first tasks that you have is to explain to the people what you have inherited. And if indeed the picture is worse than everybody thought, it will be important to explain it to everybody that this is the picture and it's worse than what everybody thought. But that will not absolve us from the promises we have made and the job that needs to be done. So I can see a situation where if the picture is not worse, we'll tell everybody that the picture is not worse. It is exactly as we thought it. If the picture is worse, we'll tell everybody that the picture is worse, and it should be founded on facts that this is why we say the picture is worse. But this is the roadmap to achieving the promises that we have made. We have an economy that has dwindled in growth in the last 4 to 6 years. We have an economy that has not created enough jobs to absorb the millions of young people who are looking for jobs. We have an economy that has been badly hemorrhaged because of things like the energy crisis, things like massive corruption, leakage, and waste in various ministries, departments, and agencies. These are things that need to be fixed regardless of whatever we uncover during this transition process. So we will level with the people of Ghana what we discovered during the transition process, but we will not run away from the responsibility that has been bestowed on us or from the promises that have been made. And I expect that the President-elect and his new administration will lay out a clear program of how we expect, what timelines we expect to achieve the very many bold, audacious promises that we made to the good people of Ghana during the campaign.
Expectations are sky high. I'm hearing people expecting electricity bills to come down. They're expecting nurses to be paid. There's a raft of promises, expectations that people are expecting to be met. How do you temper these expectations so that people do not feel let down when what they're expecting doesn't come?
I think what any new government has to do is to carry the people along. First of all, the people are giving you a mandate, an overwhelming mandate, with a lot of confidence that you have the track record and the competence to deliver on the promises that you have made. But you need, first of all, to level with the people and to carry them along, that this is where we are, this is where we want to go, this is how long it's going to take, this is what it is going to take to get there. I think that's how you manage the expectations as you go along with the people.
And then the president-elect also talked about the independent public prosecutor to deal with corruption.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a brilliant, paradigm to ensure that corruption is dealt with moving on. It's not so much about, witch hunting people from the previous administration. It's about
those who fall in the net will be trapped, definitely.
I will come to that. It's about building an institutional mechanism that ensures that corruption is dealt with properly moving on. Article 88 of our Constitution says the prosecutorial powers of the country are vested in the Attorney General. Some few government agencies have some devolved prosecutorial powers, but very often take like SHRAJ. Even when SHRAJ finds corruption, it cannot prosecute on its own. It has to go back to the Attorney General to prosecute. And where you have an Attorney General from the same government, if it happens that these persons are connected with the government, there's often a certain laxity in prosecuting them. Take the Woyome matter, for example. It's taken an individual citizen to go fight for it. Now that individual citizen is even fighting for an opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Woyome.
This week, I believe.
And the state has been opposing that. Those are the complexities of fighting corruption. Now, the NPP's promise, the new administration's promise, is that we will therefore set up an independent public prosecutor's office that will ensure that these things don't happen. If it happens that there are persons in recent times who have been involved in acts that fall within the definition of corruption, of course, these persons would have to answer to the new, legal framework that will be put in place to ensure that the investigations are properly done. Where persons need to refund monies to the state, those refunds are done. Where there are some sanctions that need to be imposed on some of these persons, those sanctions are brought to bear. But I can assure you that the focus of Nana Akufo-Addo, President-elect Akufo-Addo, the incoming MPP administrations, is not to witch hunt people of the previous administration. It's to deliver an agenda that, most importantly, number one, turns around this economy very quickly. Number two, ensures that social services are rebuilt. And number three, ensures that we have a framework for fighting corruption moving on.
But you do know that
if you have a challenge in times past and you fall within that bracket, the system would have to account for it.
But you do know that if and when somebody falls into that net and is taken through the process of the law, the political perspective will be that it was under this particular administration that somebody was jailed. You do know that. I mean,
joy.
It's inevitable.
My joy is that the Ghanaian today is very sophisticated. I mean, take this election, for example. A lot of vicious things were thrown out there about the president-elect, about the MPP. But an overwhelming majority of the voters... Well,
it was back and forth.
Well, I'm citing this as an example. An overwhelming majority of the voters did not exactly identify with that. People can see through these things. If you say something about your opponent and it is true, people can see it and identify with it. If it is not true, people can see it and identify with it. So if a person, and I know persons today, even in the current administration, who are displeased with some of the stories of malfeasance and corruption that have come to light. If a person has been involved in something like this, and the authorities have asked for refunds or are going through the processes, you can choose to tell stories about it that this is witch hunting, but the people see through it. The facts need to be put out there, the people will see through it. So I can assure you that the president-elect is not coming on a witch hunting exercise. He's more focused on the economy. When you speak to him after the victory speech and we went back indoors, he was more about social services and the other things that need to be done. If somebody has done something untoward that puts him into this bracket, the system would have to deal with it, and I don't think it would be a huge political.
I know. I still stay with the corruption bit because a lot of your communicators did say when we asked them, how are you going to get the money? A lot of money was stolen, so if we retrieve that money, then we can use it to better the economy. So the corruption link is there.
Of course it is there, and persons who have wrongly taking state monies, it stands to reason, must be asked to refund those monies. If there are any other sanctions that the new government may want to exert on these sanctions, we'll see it as we all walk along. But monies that were wrongly taken have to be refunded to the state so that those monies can be used to do the things for which they were collected, first of all. But also bear this in mind. We run an executive presidency in this country. The final decision rests with the president-elect. What spokespersons and party apparatchiks may be saying on the side may not necessarily reflect what the president-elect will outline as his instructions to be
But
followed.
they have a brief, and they speak, I believe, within their brief.
Yes, but we have just won an election. There are persons who may be expressing their views. And that's why sometimes I tell you that I don't speak for him, I don't speak for the administration. These are my personal views. It is important to categorize some of those properly so that we allow the president-elect and the new administration to give its marching orders and to move this country where it seeks to go, and not get so bogged down in what one spokesperson or one excited.
Let's just stick a little bit with the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Independent Public Prosecutor. So how will that work? You have an Independent Public Prosecutor, and then will you also have an Attorney General / Minister of Justice, or you split that as well?
My understanding as of now is that, first of all, a legal framework needs to be put in place. The necessary laws need to be passed to create the office of the Independent Public Prosecutor, to fund and resource that office, to spell out the rules of engagement and the models with which he or she or that office functions. But the Article 88 provisions of the Constitution, where there's an Attorney General who's a principal legal advisor to the government, who also works as the Minister of Justice, will stay. That's my understanding as of now. I expect that when the paperwork is put together, we will see how all of these things are fashioned out, and where the necessary amendments and corrections need to be made, it will be made. I mean, we have a lot of very experienced lawyers, even on the NDC side. One of the brilliant things about parliamentary politics is that there's a policy that you may not agree with when I announce it on a political platform. But when I win the people's mandate, when the people say they prefer the policy, and you are now in the opposition and I am now in the majority, and I bring it to Parliament, you are duty-bound to help me to shape it and to fashion it out, so that together we deliver an excellent product for the country. So as of now, this is my understanding of it. My hope and my expectation is that when the paperwork is done and it gets to Parliament, both sides will work to shape it, because I believe it will help us in our fight against corruption as a country.
I don't know whether you can answer this question, but I'll ask it anyway. For the position of the Independent Public Prosecutor, can we safely assume that Mr. Martin Amidun would be the candidate for that job?
You cannot make any assumptions as of now. As I mentioned, President-elect Akufo-Addo is going to be the executive president of the Republic of Ghana from January 7, 2017. It is his prerogative to make these appointments. We cannot make any assumptions. He hasn't necessarily even hired anybody yet or appointed anybody to any position yet. So it will be a bit premature to start making assumptions of who is going to go where.
Well, he stands a good chance, doesn't he?
I do not know.
Let's talk about the people that the president will be appointing to work with him. And he gave a brief description of the kind of qualities he's looking for on the BBC interviews, talking about people who will execute their briefs, people who will deliver on the Ghana Project. What's the Ghana Project?
The Ghana Project is the collective policies and programs that are aimed at restoring economic stability and moving this country to the next level. That's, in summary, what the Ghana Project is. It will be a combination of a number of our policy promises in our manifesto and some of the existing programs that are currently ongoing. That is the Ghana Project. Some of the things we've promised and some of the things that exist already have to come together to create that new Ghana that we are all hoping to build. And President-elect Akufo-Addo is not interested in praise singing and people who are, coming to do some bootlicking around him. He's interested in people who are focused on, and that's why he starts off by talking about people who execute their briefs. He wants to get the job done. 4 years is not so much time. He needs to get a lot done within 4 years. And so he's interested in people who are quick to execute the brief, not interested in so much politics, quick to execute the instructions that have been given, and quick to do it. And if you listen to his speech yesterday at the inauguration of the transition team, quick to do what needs to be done in the interest of the country. Not even in his interest, not even in the interest of the MPP, not to the detriment of the NDC, but in the interest of the country. That's the Ghana Project. That's the kind of people that I know he's looking to work with.
Are you part of the Ghana Project?
We are all working in various capacities, but like I said, at the end of the day, he makes his decisions about who he wants to put in what capacity. I consider myself a part of that project. I've been elected as a member of Parliament. I will go there and do my bit to push the Ghana Project there. And I assume that people from across the divide will all support the new administration to push the Ghana Project.
Will we see district chief executives being elected by the people within the MPP tenure?
It is a promise that has been made. I expect the president-elect and the new administration will keep to that promise as we go along.
And would that be helpful to you?
It will be. It will be because, for example...
Wouldn't you prefer to have an MPP DCE sitting there so that you can work with him and get things done?
Well, so in the thinking of our policy committee, the essence of decentralization is to have district chief executives accountable to the people on the ground and not necessarily accountable to the big man in the Flagstaff House
like
who appointed
the way you are accountable to the people in your constituency.
Yeah. And that ensures that the charge is kept on the ground. The president-elect, the policy team, the MPP have made the point that that is what we want to see done. Of course, we need some constitutional amendments, some legal amendments to get that done. It will be good to get that done so that on the ground, people know we have voted for X or Y or Z as our district chief executive. We expect these things of him. If he's not delivering on it, we will change it. This argument that we would, or a government would prefer its people to be there as DCEs, in another breath, while it makes sense, in another breath, you see the reality is that if you, Kafui, stood to be DCE here and got elected, and you were even a member of the opposing party, the party other than the party in government, I don't think you would deliberately frustrate government policies for political gain, because you will lose your seat if you do that. Politics is the most demand-driven profession. If you are elected and if you are responding to the needs of the people here on the ground, you will be obliged to deliver what the people want. So the election, I think, tampers down the old paradigm that you want people who are responsive to the top. President-elect Akufo-Addo's argument, the argument that was brought by the policy team, the argument that the MPP has bought and sold to the people, is that we want DCs to be accountable to the people on the ground. And it's my expectation that we will follow through on that promise.
So you'll be going to Parliament pretty soon, God willing, next month. About 170 MPs now representing representing the MPP. What was the target really before the election?
I think we were close to our target. We were very close to our target. Very, very close to our target. We're expecting just a little under that, but you
will take the 171.
Yeah. We won't reject the 171.
The average age of the MPs on your side, I haven't done the calculations, but I believe it has dropped somewhat because a lot of young people have come into the House. A lot of young people also from the NDC are in the House, new faces.
True.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's good. It has potential risks. It's good because you have a lot of young people, many young working professionals who come with various backgrounds, who have an opportunity to bring their professional expertise to bear and to contribute to a more vigorous debate and interrogation of national issues in the Chamber of Parliament. You have a crop of people who I believe, many of whom have their own levels of integrity and respect that they are bringing into Parliament, and who will not just sit down and say yeah about everything, but even if it's on their own party side and they are not happy about it, we'll do a proper introspection and interrogation of these
issues. Would you do that?
I will do that. Because I've been elected by a constituency to go and represent their interests. If there's something brought that is not in the interest of my constituents, I will have to find a way of articulating that in a politically smart way. Again, let's be honest, you cannot go in the chamber and be disrespectful of the structures. You need to find your ways of bringing your objections and your reservations to bear so that it's factored into the decisions. You have to be emotionally intelligent and politically savvy about these things. So in that sense, it's good. It has a potential risk if, we go in with a lot of youthful exuberance and unbridled, desire to
and
be
you've
heard.
lost a lot of older, multiple-term MPs as well.
True, but there are also a significant number. There is also a significant number of older, experienced members of Parliament there. My hope is that we, the young, particularly first-term members of Parliament, will learn what needs to be learned from the older folk, marry it with what we believe needs to be changed or improved, and together that confluence will help lift the kind of work that we see from our parliamentary chamber.
Have you started reading your procedures?
No, not yet.
It's a lot of legalistic
but I'm sure
regulations.
I know there are a lot of orientation programs, etc., that go into this, and I'm sure that once those processes start, we will all be in a position to acquaint ourselves with what the standing orders and the procedures are.
How much did you spend on your campaign?
Quite a lot. I will not be disclosing that on television.
Why not?
Quite a lot.
Why not? In the
I
spirit
am,
of openness, change is here.
Well, change is here, but I will not be disclosing that on television.
Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
I spent tens of thousands of CDs, but it doesn't come close to what I saw my colleague competitors spend all over the place. I think that as we move along, we need to do some work on political campaign financing, because if you do not take care, you can get some monies in that ought not to be in, and he who pays the piper calls the tune at the end of the day. We also need to do this so that we can correct the abuse of incumbency for political campaigning purposes. I think in this election we saw a bit of it that many were not pleased about, and I am of the hope that the incoming MPP administration will not repeat the same thing. It is at that level also that you can have a lot more people do the kind of necessary disclosures that they need to do. But it's been good. I democratized my fundraising exercise. I invited individuals to support me. Many of those who did, we have had to render accounts to them and to say, in the future we can do some tidy work on political party financing to improve the space.
I'm just curious. We spoke to, I interviewed your treasurer on the very innovative scratch card party financing strategy that you used. Did you get a share of that money?
We got support from the national party to support a number of our campaign activities. I do not know which of the inflow boxes those ones came from. I would imagine that part of that scratch card money all came together to form part of the war chest, which was also distributed to members, parliamentary candidates, to assist us in our various campaigns.
You know the treasurer, but how successful was the scratch card?
I think it was very successful. You had people buying 1 cedi, 2 cedi, 3 cedi. It was a democratized strategy. It was a retail strategy. People felt involved. People contributed, and it helped the cause today. My hope and my prayer is that we don't let the people down. President-elect Akufo-Addo has made the argument that he is committed to delivering on his mandate. I think it's a very important commitment he has made. I hope, among other things, that those who find space in his government, one, avoid the arrogance of power. It's a bug that bites once you get into power, and it's something we have to consciously watch against so that we don't disrespect even our critics. We don't disrespect even people who bring us counter views. That arrogance of power must be eschewed. I think another thing we also have to watch is this challenge where you find closed or groupthink and you don't have an all-inclusive process, that you are from here and I'm from here, and when did you come, and you are from this part of the country and I'm from that part of the country. We need to eschew that. We need to have an all-inclusive process. So the millions of people, some of who are not even MPP members, who voted for us, the millions of people who supported us with this 1 cedi scratch card, etc., will feel a part of this new administration we're talking about. The other thing we need to focus on is performance. Listen, if people have rejected a one-term government, the dynamics have changed. The only thing that can save us is performance. We need to perform and acquit ourselves creditably so that even our political opponents will be able to say, yes, we may not agree with you, but we can concede that you have performed. And it will make the next campaign and the next set of political exercises a whole lot easier.
On the national level, there was a concession. The president called to congratulate the president-elect. Did any of the people you defeated call you to congratulate you?
No, not yet, but I'm sure maybe somewhere along the line.
The culture hasn't seeped through to Ofoase and Ayerebi yet?
It takes, not just Ofoase and Ayerebi, in many parts of the country. You can ask some of the parliamentary candidates in many parts of the country. But I think democracy is a process. People learn. I think what President Mahama and President-elect Akufo-Addo have done is an example. They are not, may I say, lords unto themselves. They have also learned from what happened in the Mills Kufuor era, in the Mills Akufo-Addo era, and they have built on it. So I think what they are also doing, other candidates across the country, maybe in this or in subsequent elections, will also learn and build from it.
What has been the impact of this campaign on your immediate family and then your extended family as well?
With me, because usually she complains that when she wakes up from the bed, she doesn't see me. I think it's taken a toll on my family and many other families, but it is a necessary price that must be paid at this point in time for a greater good. And you can only hope that they will understand that at a point you need to, step up and be of use to the broader society. It's a price. Nothing comes at zero value. It's a price that, political families have to pay. My hope and my prayer is that we also find a way of balancing the very tedious work on the trail with making some quality time when you can with the family.
Did your wife take a leaf out of Mrs. Akufo-Addo's book and campaign for her husband?
I was out there. She was at home taking care of the family. At the higher level, because it was a presidential election, it was important for her to get involved in that campaign as well. But because mine was a lower level, my wife was working and managing the home while I was on the cocoa farms and in the trenches battling on.
What are your expectations for January 7, which is Inauguration Day?
Again, Inauguration Day, I expect it to be a very solemn, magnanimous occasion. It's also a spiritual, occasion where there is actually a transfer of the reins of government from one leader to the other. I hope it's a day of prayer across the country, regardless of the religious backgrounds, so that we can all support the new administration and the government of Ghana to succeed. I hope the jubilation is also tempered, but most importantly, for those who will be privileged to receive the reins of power, I hope it will be a moment of reflection that the people have given us a charge and we have a charge to keep.
And after that day, we will take away the elect from your name and you will become Member of Parliament for Ofoase and Ayerebi. What will be your priorities for your constituency?
I have sold what we call our 5-point plan to support education, to support healthcare, to lobby for infrastructure, to support the local economy and to assist in introducing initiatives that stimulate the local economy, and improved advocacy for Ofoase Ayerebi, which we have started already. Today you hear a lot about Ofoase Ayerebi on the national media landscape. It's part of the improved advocacy. There are a number of programs and projects that we expect to do. I'm putting together a little team, not just from my party, but from people who are like-minded and who have demonstrated that they have the interests of the district and the constituency at heart. And so my focus after December and my focus after January 7th will be to execute this agenda so that my people will be happy with the vote that they cast.
What will be your pledge to the youth as incoming Member of Parliament for the Ofoase and Ayerebi constituency?
The youth form the majority of our people. Young people's issues, therefore, ought to be the dominant issues. And as a young person myself, I'm 34 years, I consider myself a young person. I commit myself to focusing on the things that matter to young people so that they can also rest assured that when they got one of their own in, their issues were dealt with.
Have you put a pause button on school, or you still go to school and still be an MP?
I'm done with school. I finished law school. I think earlier this year I was called to the bar in September, so I'm done with school. Now I have the charge to put the little knowledge that God has given me and what I've been able to learn to work to serve my people.
April 17th will be 100 days. We'll come back to you on that.
God give us life and grace. We'll see how much we've delivered by that date.
Kojo, congratulations once again.
And congratulations for excellent coverage as well.
Thank you.
At the EIB Election Hub.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
And that was Hard Talk live from the Ewutu Senya constituency. We took the permission of the MP-elect to come and sit in his constituency and do an interview with his colleague and friend and our friend as well from back then. My name is Kafui Day. That was Kojo Opong-Nkrumah, MP-elect for the Ofoase Ayerebi constituency in the Eastern region. And this is Hard Talk on GH1 TV. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.